if we want to really drill into the future of technology, we have to look from a totally different point of view. If we do a rapid play of all the history of technology, we see that for 3, 4, 5, 6,000 years, technology provide us with means to replace the muscles. The wheel, transportation, etc. Every generation it has done a better job. Then the engines came, the electricity came, helped us to replace the muscles. Then it began to help us to replace or to enhance, not to replace, enhance, to enhance our senses. You know, like optics and broadcasting and telephone actually extended our senses. If you look on the effect of the combination of internet and AI, this enhancing or understanding, or excuse me for the word manipulating, the human understanding is going into, and the human values and the human sentiments and the human will is going into areas that 25 years ago, we wouldn't expect it. Even the gentleman on my left, president of Baidu, is now running, I think, one of the biggest farms of AI in the world. His guys know what I want to do before I can give myself an account. You know, I'm not using Baidu, excuse me, I'm not in China, but the search engine which I'm using or the e-commerce sites which I'm using know what I want before even I know. And I look on the advertising and I say, do they stand behind my back? How do they know what I want? Not only they know, but with the involvement of advertisement, which is a business now, I don't know, like 100 years at least, they also affect what they want us to want. And if you go and look into it, we are approaching every year with the aid of AI and big data, we are approaching new frontiers of understanding the human mind, the human conscientious, what is our value system, what we believe. The can be very good and also they can be very harmful, as you saw the whole discussion on fake news, etc., etc. So I think the one frontier where we are going to have huge advancement, both for the good and for the bad, is understanding the human conscience, the human value system. I will not be surprised that in 20 years, a parent who wants his son to marry a certain girl will be able to, with the technologies, to influence his son that he should fall in love in this girl and not in that girl. This we are arriving there. We are really arriving there. This is huge power, and as every technology, it's a double-sword power. It can be used for the good, it can be used for the bad. Search engines provided opportunity for people to get so much new knowledge. You know, I'm all the time going between Wikipedia and other sites to get knowledge. These are advantages, but also there are issues which we have to be very careful with. It's a new monster it's a new genie coming out of the bottle, and we hope that this genie will be a great genie, and I think I provided you a great opportunity to respond. As I told Margaret, as far as the one technology that I'm looking for, just to conclude it, I think that the whole discussion about autonomous car is overrated. And in my age, I'm now 76, what I'm really looking for is an autonomous bladder, that in 2 o'clock in the morning it can go and do his thing without me coming out of the bed. But that's a different story.
Thanks, Yossi. I think we have plenty of time to hear your idea on this autonomous bladder later. So next distinguished panelist is Zhang Deqiang. And I think so far we'll talk about either service, health service, or IT technology, or typically really no physical form. And then Dr. Zhang Deqiang, since graduate from Tsinghua University, has been working on OLED, the organic LED, which is something, the hardware is something you can hold, And I think not only can hold, I mean, the LED as we know today mostly are really very sturdy and rigid surface, and they only allow us to do a bendable, flexible, and then very soon you can really have a screen everywhere, not necessarily a flat the surface. So now, Dr. Zhang.
谢谢主持人的介绍。大家好，我是纯粹搞技术的，但是搞技术其实是很辛苦的。大家看看我的发型，能够理解了。头发渐少终不悔，唯一笑的人憔悴。我们都知道，电子信息产业里面，有2大支柱行业，一个就是半导体，另外一个就是显示，就是 display 这个行业。那我们呢，过去我和我的团队花了22年的时间，一直在专注一项显示技术的开发，就是刚才主持人提到的有机发光显示技术。其实它是一种新型的柔性的显示技术。那我们今天如果后面时间多一点的话，我也很乐意分享在过去20几年里面，整个显示产业发生哪些技术变革，对我们带来哪些变化，包括未来可能有哪些变化。那我们今天看到的话题是新一轮技术革命，他搞技术的习惯了就会去想，过去的技术革命都有什么特点。记得在这个资料里讲到，最早18世纪一开始出现技术革命的时候，什么特点呢？是以蒸汽机为代表的机械化，到后来19世纪出现的是以电力为代表的电气化，特征非常明显。专注一项。
My team and I spent 22 years on one specific technology, that is OLED. OLED, it is a new type of flexible display technology. If we had much more time, I would like to share with you the technology revolutions or possible future changes that will happen in this area. But as a technology guy, my habit is I always go back to the history to see what has already happened in our industry. For example, there have been several technology revolutions from the locomotive steam engines to electrification technology and then automation. And the new round of technology revolutions such as AI, digital transformation, and for us as display technology guys, I want our future to be visible, so that everything can be visible on human-machine interface. We talk about Internet of Things a lot, but it also needs everything to be visible so that people can perceive what is going on. We have the natural language understanding technology, but we also have visible recognition technology, for example, the facial recognition. Then from our research and development, we think that in the future we will be able to make everything displayed. As OLED, it is one of the main technology trends and in small and medium-sized display panels. And the display technology has actually been the backbone to promote development of many technologies. And when you think of a technology, you want to think of it in a both horizontal and vertical way. But I think technology development is always boundaryless. You can never imagine the actual limit of the technology. And from the display perspective, for example, in the future, your glass, a glass of water can also be a panel. Thank you, Dr. Zhang. The next one, without...
It's my colleague for many years at Microsoft, and then after Microsoft now he is the president for Baidu. So Yaqin.
Works. Nice to be back to Boao. This is actually my 15th trip to Boao, and so I was much younger when the first time I was here. So in the last 15, 18 years, I witnessed certainly the tremendous, the remarkable development of Chinese economy and also, of course, China's high-tech industry. And also I'm very happy to join a very distinguished panel today. So lawyers, doctors, technologists, venture capitalists, and scientists. Let me begin by saying that we are living in a super exciting and interesting time. We see a new wave of technology innovation has never happened before, whether it's in healthcare, computing, artificial intelligence, in life science. All those things are beginning to really change every fabric of our life and every aspect of the business. But let me also say that, we'll talk more later, that everything we do is to make sure we live better, we're more productive, we live in a better environment. So clean tech, new healthcare technology, and of course AI are the things we need to make sure you serve people, serve the society. And Xiaowen asked a question about what going to be the next innovative or breakthrough technology. Well, obviously, artificial intelligence, machine learning is the center of what we do. It powers our search engine. It helps us get into new industry, smart living, smart home, autonomous driving. We will also work on a smart bladder, autonomous bladder, and also into cloud, into vertical business. But there's one thing I think we probably underestimate, that is quantum computing. If you look at the next 5 years, 10 years, I think we probably, when you come to Boao, I think you will see more about quantum computing, quantum communication, than AI or anything else. There are a lot of new exciting developments in quantum computing, physical computers, but also new architecture and applications. You see computers based on superconductors, based on topological computer, which is what Microsoft is doing, and trapped ions or photons or diamonds. There's just so much activity right now going on in quantum computing. Baidu, in fact, we just formed a new team working on quantum computing architecture and new applications, which will hopefully leverage the tremendous progress in quantum computers. Also, we see a convergence of different fields. If you look at, Mr. Vassell correctly mentioned, there's a human value behind all the technologies we develop. So we see a convergence of digital technology and biological technology, and also ethics and human value. We see convergence of course, material science, physics, and computing. We talk more about that, but essentially, all the fields coming together is a major trend. And also, in the first time in history, we see simultaneous technological breakthrough in all these areas.
Thanks, Yaqin. So we actually have at least 4 panelists talk about IT information technology. So my first question is particular to this is a question to Margaret and Francis. In other area, particularly in Margaret, in the health, I think there's always talk about this information technology can help revolutionize. But the other angle is, are those technologies really make the health system, whether it's the private or public health system, really more productive? Right? And also, how about the progress now? How about in the future? And I think are we done right, or those things that just always the promising, but just never happen? So.
Thank you for that question, and I like to follow on the point made by Yusi. Technology, the way I understand it in healthcare, is truly a double-edged sword. I'm sure you can think of technology doing good, but also doing bad. Let's talk about the bad things first. What about ethics? What about privacy? What about regulation? I mean, technology is moving so fast that, normally governments are not quick in terms of their actions. So how can you make sure that the average citizen in any country is not taken for a ride by the industry. So this is an important point. And you mentioned the beauty of technology to to improve efficiency. I think that can be done. I mean, this is already being done. I give you an example. In developing countries, I mean, delivery system, logistics is poorly developed. And yet they are using drones to deliver medicines, to transport blood for surgical interventions. So my point is, I support technology innovation, but how can we get more good out of the bad? And while I have the floor, you see, you mentioned about technology will democratize. It's good, but don't forget the developing countries. Many of the developing countries, in my previous incarnation that I was working in, they don't even have water. They don't even have electricity. How can they power all these great and good technology? So when we, on the one hand, we develop, bring together the scientists, that's another important point for me. Scientists tend to work in isolation. This is not a criticism. This is just the way they do business. But, maybe it's time that we coordinate them together right from the outset. The academics, the scientists in the universities, the industry, the governments, and the consumers must come together and look at, under all sorts of circumstances, what is the best option and the best choice, because there's never a perfect choice. What would be the best and acceptable option to solve society problems? Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. So, on similar question, for Francis, like in the WIPO, what did you see this information technology? You also mentioned you are excited about the information technology, but how those really help the advance of other disciplines? And I think I don't know, did you see this particularly from your lines of work? Like, is IT really become the foundation to actually help other science, other area to advance? And then, if not, what you think needs to be done to actually make sure? Because I think we need more than just IT technology.
Yes, well, look, I think we do see that IT is underlying everything, absolutely everything these days. I would say that technology is neutral. Technology, science is neutral. Technology, its application, the application of science in the economy is neutral. It's up to us as a society to manage those technological applications in order to achieve the social outcomes that we want to achieve. So it's not technology that's the problem, it's our governance systems that are not necessarily the problem, but that are challenged in the current environment. And it's a huge challenge because on the one hand, most of these manifestations of new technologies are global or potentially global, and we know that the national governance apparatus is much more developed than international governance apparatus or international cooperation, the capacity for international cooperation. So I see this as one of our real questions that is emerging, is how can we respond as a global society in a better manner to the possibilities and potential of technology in order to achieve some of the outcomes, such as, and more even, distribution of technological capacity, as Margaret has mentioned, but many, many other outcomes. And that, for me, is, I think, one of the biggest challenges being put up by technology.
Yeah, thank you, Francis. So on this topic, I would like to ask Yossi. I think Francis mentioned the role of the government, but I think on the entrepreneurship, I think yes, most startup is trying to make money, trying to make it big. But I know in U.S., in other parts of the world, I think there are also some kind of entrepreneurship actually doing for social goods, like
clean energy, all this. Yeah, eventually they probably will profit, but actually they probably had equal weight or even more weight on doing for social goods, like something also the Margaret also mentioned, like using technology to take care of the not so fortunate, the bottom billions of people. So in your area, did you see those happening, and then what should we do as a society to encourage more of those social entrepreneurship, not just for money?
I think that you put your finger on the most crucial point, because one most important effect of the advancement technology is polarizing society in the way that those who are in the game are having it much better. You know, it's a race, and some of the people are going much faster, but they leave behind them a long trail of people which are disfranchised. And if you look at Europe and in the United States on the last elections, you see that the people who are being left outside of this technological race, the blue-collar people, the people which don't have meaningful jobs, begin to be very unhappy, to put it mildly. The biggest invention of civilization, the biggest invention of society for thousands of years, both in the East and in the West, was the social responsibility of the society. You know, before there were government, people took care of the elder people. The urbanization in the last that in my little country, where we have an extremely active and wonderful internet society, according to the OECD, we also have the biggest gaps between the have and the have-not. So the civic society have a very selfish interest to make sure that the benefits will be distributed evenly. In Israel, most of the leaders in the high-tech are taking voluntary jobs in the education system, but it's far from being sufficient. And I think that this issue that you ask now is the major threat both to the internet captains and to society. Something is broken, and the answer cannot be just it's the fault of the government, or it's the fault of a teacher. A lady who is coming to be a teacher cannot be a replacement of 40 mothers which have to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go and do job. There is a very major social issue which is being aggravated to some of us. To some of us it's terrific, but to some of us it's aggravated, it created rage, it creates feeling of this franchise, it creates feeling of being out of the party. And because of the internet, when you are out of the party, it's not that you are out of the party and you don't see the party, you are out of the party, but you are like on the fence seeing the party. And we better have a wake-up call, because this is a very serious issue. One last word. I think that one of the solutions is what I call, I learned it from Burning Man, radical inclusion, that we have to include in the high-tech sector, we have to look to all kinds of fraction of society that today don't get access because they belong to some segment of the society which is staying away.
Thank you, Yossi. So my next question is to three technologists, Peter, Deqiang, and Yaqing. So all three of you working in the high-tech industry. But I want you to actually answer what particular sector you think your line of work, you see the big opportunity or the sector in the great needs of the technology revolution? And also, what do you think the right model for you to engage that sector, right? It's really just provide them or feed them the technology, or there's a new form of the collaboration, and then to make it happen, to achieve the impact. So Peter, we start with you.
In fact, I think all the industries and sectors need technology revolution. If you pick one, what would you choose? I think health is the sector that needs the revolution most. The poor, the rich, all people need it. So health sector should be integrated with the new technology revolution. And autonomous driving is also another technology that is very important and represents the trend.
Thank you, Peter. De Qiang, you actually work on the OLED. So yes, we love the vision of the display everywhere. But what do you think other than, well, I'm sure people all have the cellular phone, the mobile phone, but what's the next big opportunity for OLED technology?
I think there are several characteristics. Number one, for a technology to boom, it has to come at the right time. So it has to address the exact demand of that particular society at that particular time. For example, healthcare, transportation, or manufacturing efficiency. But to develop a technology, it takes a long time, especially from making an actual breakthrough of the technology research to actually having a commercially applicable product. It takes a long period. So from our display perspective, we still have this impression of our black and white TV in the 90s and the 80s. And then we had TFT screens. But when we had the TFT screens, there is no commercial products to apply that technology on. But then we had the laptops. So that's like a backward sequence. So we had the TFT technology, and then we developed laptop. So I think the first one that we needed for technology is that it has to come at the right time to serve the specific need of the society. Secondly, we need an open ecology. Our moderator talked about the future a lot. The OLED technology will help our smartphones to fold. So you will not need to bring a cell phone, a pad, and a laptop on your business trip. You only need to bring one. You will have a 3-in-1 solution. Same thing goes to TV. You will have a TV that you can roll it up and take it with you, because the screen will be able to be folded and rolled. And what about the touch screen functions? So if we have the rollable or foldable screen, we need to include the touch screen technology as well, and also fingerprint recognition, for example. So in that sense, we need an open ecology to include all of the technologies. Thirdly, I think we need to have technology, an ongoing technology upgrade. So in the example of wristband, we had Huawei wristband now, but we used to have imported brands. And the same goes to the display screens. The OLED screen that we are producing right now are already shipping to Chinese brand manufacturers. The ongoing upgrades that I'm talking about is that on a specific demand, on a specific product, we need to continuously make upgrade on it. So the three aspects, the ongoing upgrades and the right time, and an open ecology. These are the important ones. So Yaqing, Baidu is working on specific sectors on your cloud technology. What do you think is the most exciting?
Of the breakthrough revolutionary changes, and particularly not just technology, or the impact, the business opportunity.
It's hard for me to pick one, but let me say first group of companies or industry. It changes is actually IT and internet companies. In fact, the search is the first business that's being enabled, elevated by AI. And cloud computing is another, which completely changes the economics of IT. The second group of industries will be the traditional industries, finance, healthcare, education, logistics. If you look at machine learning, AI, is simply a pattern classification and recognition, with voice, pictures, languages. So any place with a lot of data, with a regular pattern, will be enabled, helped by AI. And the third will be to create new categories. We talk about autonomous driving, we talk about advanced robotics, we talk about the new retail. Those things will happen, but it's going to take some time.
Thank you, Yaqing. So now it's really our most exciting section. If you think those conversations are not exciting enough, so now it's your turn to ask the question for our distinguished panelists. Who want to be the first? That lady in the middle.
So I have a question for Mr. Guri. So the United States is now accusing China of using the joint ventures to help pressure the technology transfer of U.S. companies. So do you think it's a justified accusation, or America just exaggerates the situation? Thank you.
Well, look, I have two comments, if I may, in reply to this very important question. First is that it's a bilateral dispute between the United States of America and China. I represent a multilateral agency, and it hasn't been brought to this multilateral agency, so we need to take this into account. But one of the interesting things is, I think if one is dispassionate about it, which is sometimes difficult, is that it's a bilateral dispute with multilateral implications. And that's because we live in a globalized world. So it's very difficult for a bilateral dispute between the two biggest technology powers, arguably, in the world, not to have multilateral implications. And so we're all concerned by this, I think, this dispute that we're seeing play out right at the moment. Think in terms of global value chains, and I think we all know that some of the trade statistics that are given in terms of what's a deficit are very difficult to actually validate when you look behind the scenes and you see that maybe a value at the end is given to one particular product and its sales, but that product has been constructed in several different places. So our statistics need to be brought up to date in order for us to be able to look at this question, I think, in a reasonable manner. And then I think my other comment that I would say is that in a certain sense, and I'm being rather dispassionate about all of this, and it's an important question, in a certain sense, it's a phenomenon of competition that we're seeing play out here. I think if you look at the 19th century, you saw that, of course, the United Kingdom was the first place in which the Industrial Revolution occurred. The Industrial Revolution came to the United States of America rather late, actually the second half of the 19th century. And you found many accusations from the United Kingdom concerning the United States of America when you saw its rise in the second half of the 19th century. So what we're seeing is competition here. You have the United States as an extremely important, probably the most important technological power in the world, and you have the rise of China. And this is going to play out in a number of different ways in respect of competition, and one of those ways is regulatory competition. I think that's what we're witnessing.
Thank you, Francis. This lady in front.
My question is to Mr. Sun and to Mr. Zhang, the display expert. So Inspur is a huge company. As the leader of a company like Inspur, what kind of financial capability would you need to run Inspur and to make Inspur contribute to the One Belt and Road initiative? Now the question to Mr. Zhang is that you think that an ecology is needed for technology development. So for financial sector, how can financial sector help in this process? Yes, so the financial sector is related to technology development. From the company development perspective, we definitely need the backup of the financial industry. And for companies like Inspur to go outbound of China, we also need this support from the financial industry. For example, we have Inspur, Ericsson, IBM. We are right now generating an integrated solution with the help from multiple banks. And those banks will be our backbone. So our initiative for the One Belt and One Road initiative is a combined solution with our technology and the financial support from China's national banks. Another thing is that Inspur actually has a technology to support the micro businesses and small businesses in China to get loans easily. And for those kind of businesses, to get loans and credit is a challenging business all over the world. Alibaba and other companies are also playing a different role in this. What are we doing in this area? We use big data so that we can rate those small and micro businesses easily, and the ones with good credit rating can get loans very conveniently. Thank you. Your question shows that we have some support from the financial sector. For innovation and for a technology, it definitely needs investment. In terms of time, my team has been spending 22 years in this area, so that's investment of time. Secondly, it's the investment in terms of capital. In the past, we've had support from all social realms, especially the National Development Bank. But we would hope that we can get higher capital support, because for those national banks, they have a lot of credit for strategic industries. You mentioned ecology, this whole ecosystem. When we built the first MOLED in the 1980s, we had quite advanced technology, and we were developing this technology and manufacturing line with local supply chain. And after a few years, we have developed the local manufacturing capabilities across the value chain. And the PMOLED manufacturer has always been a profitable business because we are working with the supply chain. Also, we also need to work with our downstream suppliers and users. In this area, we would also need financial support. So to develop the whole ecosystem, we still have a lot of room to improve. Thank you. Next question.
Dear panelists, my name is Tony Ling from the Riverside Group. Actually, today's topic is about technological revolution. I want to talk about technological ethics. I think, Margaret, you have raised that issue perfectly spot on. And this question is to Mr. Zhang Yaqing. And, you know, Facebook is in the center of the storm because of some level of data leakage. And I think if we are typing the WeChat every day, we are exposed to the world. And we are not only exposed, we are naked, I think. So we are stepping into a very dangerous zone of leaking personal data, no matter it's in the medical area, it's in the new economy area, or shared economy area. So what Baidu is committed to do anything on protecting human privacy, and also utilize new technology to make sure that human privacy is protected. So it's not about revolution, it's about ethics. So we have to use technology to defend ourselves. Instead, we will be revolutionized. Thank you.
Great question. As a big company, when we build technology, serve a lot of people, we have a lot of data. All the company, including Baidu, share a big responsibility as well. So security and privacy are the prerequisite for us to do everything else. It's like, zero to ones. Without that one, no matter how many zero you have, it's irrelevant. So we at Baidu have a very clear position and very clear process, procedure to make sure the data we acquire are safely protected, and encrypted. And so this is our highest principle, the center of what they do, to protect the privacy, to make sure the user data is secure and encrypted.
Thank you very much. I'm from Xinhua News Agency, and my question is to Mr. Zhang. Is that we know China has the Belt and the road and the belt. And we see that there is some cooperation, just like the structure firm to have in the area of infrastructure. But as a technology firm, what can you do in the road and the belt? So maybe I think we have something to do for your company. Thank you.
对，你是 which 章 two 章 two what by the 雅琴
I can't get away from that. All right. Well, if you look at just the the overall, let me call it trade, right, of China to export goods and services the last number of years. The first wave was more of just the goods, cheaper goods. And then there comes the capital. And now comes with capability and also technology. And companies like Baidu, the internet firms, are beginning to work with other multinationals, to work with other countries in terms of really building the right type of expertise to attract talents, to also export some of our platform to the rest of the world. Example is actually, we were talking about autonomous driving, is Apollo. Apollo is the first open platform for autonomous driving. We make that available to Chinese companies, but also to the companies on the road and the belt, also to other companies. And the algorithms are open, source code are open, and essentially the simulators are open, and we encourage other companies outside of China to work with Baidu. I think that's the example of sharing our technology to other countries.
Hello, my name is Aaron Yang from Seagate. My question is for Mr. Sun. So, as we all know that data storage is playing a very important role in big data and the next wave of technological, revolution. So, my question is, what's your vision for this data storage industry in next 3 or 5 years? What's your expectation for this industry? Thank you.
Very good question. We use a lot of the hardware, hard drive, and now we're talking about the storage. Now, technology will drive the transformation of storage. It is estimated by 2020 that we will have a 35 ZB, and now we will have a 50 ZB or even more. So this puts enormous demand on the way of storage. Baidu may have a lot of data and how to store the data. This is a big challenge. There are 2 aspects. First, how to store the data. We need to do the storage very fast, and there are a lot of changes. How to store the great amount of data and the data exchange, how to make it faster. And 2 technologies are the key. How do we leverage the disk data and new disk technologies and electronic disk technology? I think this will bring major changes.
Next question, the lady in the middle.
Hello, my name is Shahua, and I'd also like to ask Mr. Zhang Yaqing. So obviously with the Sino-US trade dispute, Washington has been quite tough on, also recently with CFIUS, with Chinese companies taking over US companies. To what extent do you think this dispute is going to possibly slow down or even hinder the next wave of technological revolution? Because I think a lot of, how do you call that in AI, like basic research is still really done in the US, for example. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I don't like trade dispute or friction. There's no winner out of this. In fact, back in Davos a couple of months ago, I made it very clear that this is the world economy is so intertwined. It is not a good idea for any country to do that. It's not good for U.S., not good for China, not good for the rest of the world. And certainly, I don't want to see any escalation on that. It's better for everybody. Having said that, at the current scale, I haven't seen any structural impact on what we do. The talent, the technology, including the market itself, is still moving forward. But I don't want to see any escalation, which will hinder certainly the technological developments in the future.
We probably have time for the last 2 questions. The gentleman.
I'll speak in Chinese. My question goes to Yossi. I listened to your lectures in the university in Israel. You are known as the father of innovation. For the entrepreneurship in China, we have the mass entrepreneurship and innovation strategy in China. Because mass entrepreneurship and innovation, there are a lot of failures when it comes to entrepreneurship. And people always look at the success of entrepreneurship, but we sometimes ignore the failures of starting up a business. So from your personal experience, so how do you understand the failures of those startup companies? So could you give some encouragement or instructions to the young people who want to start up their companies?
Question, right?
That's a very good question, and whenever somebody tells you it's a good question, it means he doesn't have a very good answer. But I will try to do my best. First of all, we have to understand that as far as failure is concerned, the entrepreneurs themselves, vis-à-vis the VCs or the investors, are in two different situations. The entrepreneurs are sacrificing or risking a thing which is worth much more than money. They are putting at risk their best years. An entrepreneur is going to start a company, he will put in it 2, 3, 4 years, and he may win or he may lose everything and go home with nothing. So first of all, the VCs and the angels investors and the bankers have to have enormous respect to what the entrepreneurs are risking. They are risking their best years, and that the investor is losing money, it's not a big deal. Next year we will make it, or next month, or next quarter we will make it back. So this is number one. Number two, in this game, you cannot play this game without having a risk. Our former President Perez used to say, you cannot make omelets without breaking the eggs. And this is the situation. You want to go into startup, you have to be willing to take a risk. For the investors, again, it's easy, because if they are smart, they will create a portfolio. On some of them they will lose, on some of them they will win. They will lose small money, and when they win, they can make very big wins. And this is actually the rationale of investors. Personally, I invested, after we sold ICQ to AOL, I had the means to begin to do investment. I invested in 86 internet, I even don't call it companies, internet situations, because some of them became companies, some of them became nothing. 32 of them I sold, and I became a genius investor. However, 30 of them were closed, evaporated, disappeared, vanished, didn't exist anymore, out of the 86 investment I've done. And I don't look on it as failures, because number one, it's not very good for my ego. Second, I cannot explain to my wife is Jewish, you cannot explain to her that there is a reason to make a failure. So I look at it as the price or the cost of doing business, and this is really what it is. If you don't lose, it means you don't have volatility. If you don't have volatility, you don't have the chance to profit much. I would like to refer everybody here to the words that long ago American president by the name of Teddy Roosevelt said. He gave a terrific, he won the prize Nobel, and he went to get the prize Nobel, and he gave in the Sorbonne a talk, a very known talk called The Man in the Arena. And I cannot say in the words that he said, but what he said, that the respect and the glory should go to the people who are jumping into the arena and are willing to take a good fight, even if they are lying on the dirt with blood and dust and everything. At least they try to make some great achievement or great accomplishment. The glory doesn't belong to the people who are sitting on the first row and not willing to take risk and not willing to play. So if you want to play, you should take risk, and if you are lucky, you win, and if you are not lucky, you have to regard it as a mount climber who tried to make the last climb, didn't succeed, go back to base camp, and putting him together. The pain I have when I close a company, I swear to you, I know it sounds a little bit kind of nice saying, but I feel much more sorry for a nice young entrepreneur who put everything he has and everything he doesn't have into the attempt. And usually these guys are so devoted and so dedicated that even when they run out of money, they continue for another half a year. I'm sure you saw this guy half a year, and you ask them what you do, how you live. They say, we buy a pizza It has 8 quarters, eight pieces. We eat 1 piece every day, and Saturday we eat 2 pieces, and this is how we survive. The respect should go to these guys. So if you are not willing to take the risk, don't go into the game. As again, like quote another American President, Harry Truman, he said, if you can't stand the heat, don't go to the kitchen. I'm telling you, the kitchen is very warm, there are good smell, and you can eat sometimes, so do go to the kitchen.
Yeah, I think we really run out of time, but let's do the last one. You? Are you? Oh. Okay.
Thank you for your panelist presentation. I'm Jae-shi from Hana in Korea. Yes, I think we see the very great next wave of technological revolution. I mean, but as technological revolution goes, but we also see the big gap between developing country and developed country in terms of technological revolution development. So I have a question to Francis about this issue. So from your thoughts, could you share some idea to solve this kind of problem in terms of the gap between the developed country and developing country about the technological revolution development?
So Margaret, probably you take this last one. Particularly, I'm sure you saw a lot of this while you're serving the WHO, like the difference between developed and developing countries.
The question is addressed to Francis. Let him have a go first, and I'll take another bite.
Okay.
Okay. Look, it's a great question because I think technological capacity is a real differentiator in the world. And with the speed of technological change, there is a great risk that the asymmetries in technological capacity are exacerbated. Now, the good thing about technological capacity, I think, is that it's available to everyone. So if you take petroleum as an example, a country either has petroleum or it doesn't have it. But technological capacity, if you don't have it, you can acquire it. So that's the good thing about it. It's a possibility, and we've seen it happen. And we're sitting in a country where it's happened in extraordinary time. The more difficult part, however, is that it really is a long-term game. It's not something that you can acquire overnight, of course. So it requires an effort, first of all, to develop local technological capacity, where you have to go from everything from the education institution, investment in education, right through to the intermediaries, the venture capitalists, the market, the business sophistication. So this is a huge journey. And secondly, you also have to acquire foreign technology in the process, and I think every single country has done that. And you have to work out the ways in which you can do that acquisition of foreign technology. So I would think it's a great question. There's no easy answer, but it certainly should be a major policy focus for us, how to encourage the development of technological capacity in the least developed and the developing countries.
Thank you for that extremely important question. Let me make one point very clear. The private sector has to make profit. Otherwise, they are no longer a private sector. They would become a social service. So we should not criticize the private sector for making profit. Now, in the World Health Organization, when I was working there, the one issue that comes up all the time is about intellectual property on innovative medicines. Now, how can we facilitate? In fact, I work very closely with Francis in the WIPO as well as with the World Trade Organization. The three agencies work together to facilitate technology transfer on a mutually agreed platform, and we provide the expertise, be it in the health sector, in the IP, and in the trade, to encourage countries who are very advanced in technology development and countries that are not so advanced, and how can